Hello guys, Omni here. I just finished episode 7 of the final season of Arrow. Again, like with the previous videos, if you're new here, there's going to be spoilers going forward, so be sure if you haven't seen tonight's episode to go ahead and tune out now and come back after you have, and we can talk about that after the episode, after the video here in the comments. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and dive into this episode. Now, this episode was really great. There were some great action sequences for sure, but this was really just a lot of really good, solid, emotional character moments. And I teared up quite a few times. And this is really kind of, I feel like this is the goodbye episode because it is right before Crisis. The episode ends with Crisis happening. So a lot of these are probably some of the last moments we're going to see certain characters with Oliver or him saying his goodbyes to certain characters. And it was just really emotional. And this was really about this whole episode. The theme was, well, last theme was like accepting fate, accepting what you have to do. It was just about acceptance in general. This episode was more of about acceptance and letting go and worrying about, the legacy you're leaving behind, the time you currently have between this little reprieve before the actual crisis occurs, especially with the lesson with Yao Fei showing up, talking about how he never got to say the things he wanted to Shadow because of what happened and because of their paths, and that Oliver currently is just rushing headfirst and avoiding having these conversations that he needs to have with William and Mia. That is currently not helping them really kind of come to terms and grasp. More Mia so than William. William seems to have like a firm understanding of what's going on, even if he's struggling with showing it. He had the privilege of growing up knowing Oliver, and even in their conversation later in the episode when he's talking to Oliver and talking about how he was just angry, he didn't understand, and he didn't really appreciate everything that Oliver did, even though he knew the great things that Oliver did and he witnessed them. He resented it in a way because he didn't get to spend that time with him. But as he got to learn and when he got to, participate with future Team Arrow and trying to fight for something bigger than their team, he finally started to get and understand why Oliver did the things he did and how he can accept that, because he finally knows what it's feel like to fight for something that is more than just your selfish desires. And that's always what Oliver had been doing in a lot of the cases. And just, that moment when he was like, I did for a long time. I was just struggling with it. I fought you on it. And I wasted so much time, like, angry when I didn't need to be. And where it just was, I teared up. I teared up just so hard. And he's like, he's proud of his father. Oliver's proud of him. Everyone's proud. And I'm proudly crying in that moment. It was just beautiful. But we learned a couple things in the beginning of this with them. Lian Yu is apparently the source of some kind of energy spike. We don't really get an explanation as to what it is or what's causing it. But the energy giving off from the island has allowed it to regrow from where it was previously exploded. So a lot of the island's grown back, and along with the foliage being back and restored in green, it also brought back some of Oliver's dead enemies on the island, mostly Fires and his enemies, as well as Wintergreen. Unfortunately, sadly, there was no Shadow didn't make an appearance. Deathstroke didn't make an appearance. There's no Slade Wilson here. The closest we get is the proxy, of course, Wintergreen, but he was just a faceless enemy even before in season 1 and then now. So it was still cool. I would have liked to see Manu Bennett show back up. So that is a little disappointing. But if it was for like legitimate reasons, like he couldn't make it or anything like that, I'm sure that's fine. I would have really liked to see them have one last moment also. We also learned with John trying to like figure out and gauge why Lila has been giving into this whole moment, with the just kind of taking at face value everything the monitor's saying. We do learn and confirm at least that Marnavu intervened and saved her life with the IED back in Afghanistan, or at least that's what she's been told, and she took that on faith. He showed her the future of what would happen if they do not prevent crisis. So that's how long she's been on board. That's been her entire life. For a little bit with the main team, Mia's back to really kind of being frustrated, and now that Oliver's telling them that we can't fight it anymore, because he's telling everybody, all right, we tried. We need to just accept this and move forward, and we're following Marnevu's plan. I know what Lila's doing. I understand. We just need to do it. And some of the people, because they didn't go through the experience that Oliver did, that they don't quite understand it, but they're still going along with it anyway, because that's just what they're doing. They got no other choice at this point, but no one else is fighting it but Mia. And of course, for a moment, I was just like, oh God, she's back to being dumb again. She doesn't how do you not understand that your needs here is just bigger than yourself? It's like the opposite of the William thing, except she's in this moment. But they resolve that out in a very nice way later, where when they have their final little conversation, because William has an amazing talk to her as well, talking about how he spent so much of his life not being angry with their father for what he was doing or everything like that, that what happened, and that was just wasted time. And they've got this gift. He didn't know that Oliver would be gone. He thought he had time to be angry and he can make that up later, but he didn't know that he would die, because he had seen him in the field. He think he could out cheat death as many times as possible, and that he could just make it up later, and he can't, because that didn't happen. So Mia's doing this in this moment by pushing Oliver away with her anger, rather than cherishing the time that they have. And that's what kind of turns her around. And her moment at the end with Oliver is really sweet, and I loved it. Just them talking about it. Of course, he's always kind of guarded on it, but it's finally nice to see that, she understands everything that's going on. Finally. So she's back to being like where she needed to be. I understand like the whole conflict with being I hated heroes, because being a hero is what kept you from ever being in my life, rather than appreciating the things that being a hero did, the things that Oliver did, his accomplishments, the people he saved, growing up with all those stories of the legendary Green Arrow. It just, she just saw that as the reason she didn't have a father, which made sense. Like, I get that, but as you grow older, as you understand things, and now being faced with it in front of you, these things, your father is there in front of you doing these things, taking on these greater than life threats, something bigger than just one person. It outweighs your selfish desires, even if they are heartfelt or bonded or something you need. I'm sorry, but it's not worth the lives of billions of people, of multiple universes of planets and stuff like that. And it's finally hitting her in this moment. And then they bond just on Purgatory there, when they're there and their moment. And Oliver even comes to peace he used to hate this island where she used to hate Oliver. But, without that in their lives, they wouldn't be where they are, who they are currently. Maybe she would have been a completely different person. She wouldn't be as strong as she was if she didn't go through the loss, the training, and all of that as a result of what happened to Oliver. And same with Oliver. He wouldn't have any of these lives. He would have been a much more worse person if he had just stayed that immature kid that never landed on that island and, turned that all around. He would just been some other degenerate rich kid and something like that, just not really contributing, the things that all the bad things that he was and was faced with in the first couple seasons. And you just got to take that. I mean, it might be bad. It has bad memories. It did bad things. It hurt you. It took people from your life, but it's your DNA. It's part of you now. You can't deny it anymore. And again, it's another thing that has to be accepted. Another thing that was accepted in this, John and is just still fighting. Fighting Lila, fighting on Oliver about this fate that they can't avoid. And there's a great moment and visceral moment too, when, the plutonium that they had needed to be delivered by the rest of Team Arrow, Dinah, Roy, and Renee. They brought it in on a plane that got shot down by Fire's men before we even knew they were there, and they crash landed. So the team had to split up and find them. And when John finds Roy, John, Connor, and who was there? Dinah find Roy. He's pinned down by some leftover scrap metal, and they can't get it off of him, and he's still fighting it. This is like a physical representation of him. What he's been doing with Oliver and Lila here is just, pushing, no matter how much they try, they don't have the means or the manpower to lift this thing off of Roy. The only thing that they have, the only option they have is to cut off his arm. Nothing, no way out of it. They're going to die soon. There's going to be people surrounding the area, or there's a gas leak in the plane that's going to eventually explode and kill them there. He's still just trying to get Roy up, and he just gets it. It's kind of like the last episode where the whole cycle was like, you can't beat this, Oliver. You can't. And this is that same kind of moment manifested and kind of abridged for John. And again, he learns the acceptance that some things are unfortunately inevitable. So everything eventually ends. And they again have a really great moment at the end with him and Oliver, where Oliver, apologizes for all the things, and they talk about their friendship and their bond, and that no matter what happens to Oliver, that can never be a failure for Diggle. Diggle in no way has ever failed Oliver up until this point. And that's just the bond of their friendship. He trusts him beyond measure. And he asks him to, at least before the crisis, if there's any way possible to get his kids back to their home in 2040, and then to find Felicity and tell her to make sure that they never grow up alone. So again, another thing changing the future. Of course, another thing here earlier, Roy now doesn't have an arm. So there's a line towards the end where they have this moment where he talks about the Argus doctor is going to work on his arm, and maybe he'll get a cybernetic or bio arm like in the comics when he becomes Arsenal. So maybe he'll get some kind of cybernetic implant or some kind of weaponized arm or something like that, like in the comics, which would be pretty neat. But of course, that's probably something we'll never see. Just something to allude to in the future, which would be interesting and nice and fun. But Roy had a couple of really good moments. Like after the sacrifice, after his arm was removed, they have a moment with John where he's like, John apologizes for him. And he's like, this is my fault. And Roy just, he's like, no, I mean, it's not your fault. This isn't the best, but it's so much better than just rotting away alone with nobody around, no one in my life, no team, no family. Being a hero takes sacrifices. It's part of the job. Eventually, you can't just come out unscathed every time. And this was his sacrifice. And again, it kind of added into Diggle's whole little plot in this episode, his little lesson, just like this. I feel like this was as much as it was a lesson for Oliver, was very much a focus of this episode was a lesson for John, which was really nice too. And then Roy's goodbye to Oliver was really awesome too, and I teared up at that. I teared up when Roy was talking to John. I teared up when Roy was talking to Oliver. I teared up with William talking to Mia. I teared up with William talking to Oliver. I teared up with Oliver talking to Mia. There's a lot of tearing up. And it turns out that the device that they made was intended for Lila. It wasn't, I don't know if it was intended to be a weapon or if it was, we don't really know exactly what it did, but whatever it did, it could only be activated by her DNA. The initial implication was that it was going to be for Oliver, but it was not. And she takes it, she has like this expression of realism, and she's like, I have to go. And a portal opens and she disappears. And when Oliver's having his final little Mia moment at the end of the episode with Mia, the sky lights up with electricity and turns red. And before them appears Lila in her full-on Harbinger outfit. And they're like, Lila, what are you doing? I was like, I'm not Lila anymore, but a harbinger of what is to come. The crisis has begun. And here we go. So it's officially go time. And I don't know what that means for the future for Lila. I don't know what this is going to mean for the team. I'm really interested. I just can't wait, man. I can't wait. I should be in bed right now. My schedule changed because, and now I'm waking up. Well, I'll be waking up for work in like 4 hours. So, but I can't wait, man. I had to watch this. I had to know because people were already commenting on my Crisis trailer reaction that I put up. I mean, I can't access social media, or at least any of the people I follow, because it's just stuff and spoilers, and I want to experience it. And I'm so excited. And it's this weekend, it's starting. I've got I've got CW set up to where I can stream it on Hulu at least live, so I can DVR it through their live TV. I'm at least signed up for that, at least throughout the remainder of the crossover event, the remainder of Arrow, so it can keep up on time with this as it's coming out. So maybe get these out a little bit faster rather than waiting till the next day, which is what I should have done tonight, but I just couldn't because I was impatient and I didn't want to have anything spoiled by waiting all day and just having to avoid so many things. So here we are. We're doing it. I'm going to go ahead and put this up. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to you guys. I am ready for Crisis. Are you guys? What did you guys think of this episode? What was your favorite moments of this episode? What are some things you wish they would have done? Of course, my big miss is Manu Bennett's Deathstroke. Slade Wilson would have been awesome to be in this. Perfect for that time frame too. But again, not everything can be done, and it was just one of those things that I would have liked to have seen. The episode overall was still really awesome, and I loved it. So tell me your guys' thoughts in the comments below. We'll carry on the conversation after the video. If you guys like this video, make sure to support the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing. Really appreciate you guys so much. Thank you all for watching these videos and talking in the comments and, everything involved with making this channel active and growing. I appreciate all of you guys. Everybody new, thank you all for stopping in. I hope you guys like to stay. But that is it for tonight. I'll catch you guys in the Crisis. Take care, everybody.